Namaste, everyone. Welcome to the Pranic Healing Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Jason Yuan. Today we have Dr. Ursula Lentine. She's a doctorate in conscious studies. She also is a licensed minister, internal family system subconscious specialist, certified pranic healing instructor, and arhatic yogi. Please welcome Dr. Ursula.
Thank you, Jason.
So welcome on to the show, Dr. Ursula. I know we've had this a long time coming and planning, but I'm so happy that we can have this episode, especially on this auspicious date, being the Lunar New Year, the year of the rabbit. I literally just came out of my family dinner and just kind of, not dinner, but a meal, if you would say, with everyone. So, and today we're going to talk about a very cool and interesting subject that I don't think a lot of people know about, and that's about the subconscious mind in the different layers of the energy body. And I know that you're a specialist in this area, so I think a lot of people would get value out of this from this conversation. But before we begin, I wanted to hear from yourself, Ursula. Just kind of, share about your personal introduction and how you kind of got here and what kind of motivates you and inspires you to kind of do the study and this work.
Thanks for that question. I think, probably like yourself, we've always been on this path. I believe in past lifetimes. So in the work that I've done, I've been a monk, I've been a nun, I've been a nomad, you know what I mean? Like eaten oatmeal and swept the temple floor for a lifestyle. So it's
absolutely.
I have a recollection of that within my system, and it's very comforting for me to be living a life of service. And just like many monks, we do a lot of intellectual study. So spirituality has been on my radar since I was a child, basically. So I'm in my full expression of it now, and I just really enjoy it. And I couldn't imagine doing anything else. I'm living my life on purpose. This is my purpose.
Beautiful. And that's amazing. I think that, especially when you have that clarity about, the past and kind of seeing how the past brought you to this point, it really, like you said, empowers you to kind of go full force into, your purpose and your work that you're doing right now. So thank you for that. And, today's topic about the subconscious mind in the different layers of our energy body. So I kind of wanted to break it down for the audience. So what is your definition of the subconscious mind, and what is the energy body in the different layers? If we can answer that in sort of a two-part question.
Yeah. So the subconscious mind is in a different layer, right? In a different frequency of our conscious mind. So our conscious mind, if you look, I'm just going to make a forehead. I'm just drawing this line on my forehead. So there's a consciousness. So that's what my eyes and my five senses, and they're telling me, oh, it's cold outside. Oh, today's Sunday. Oh, this, oh, that, oh. And I'm like, oh, I'm in charge of all that information. Wow, I'm powerful. And the conscious mind is tied to our ego. And the ego is not our spirit self. It's our animal lineage self. And it's kind of based on fear and control and so on. And then subconscious is the white slate, the white canvas that we're born with, and events that happen shape that and color that, my belief systems, my culture, my heritage. So things are embedded kind of like a hard drive. And then the subconscious is the hard drive. And then the conscious is Word or Excel, that you're working on. So there's a software, and then there's a hard drive. So I would say the subconscious is the hard drive, and then the ego, conscious mind, what I think I'm in charge of is the conscious mind.
Okay, excellent. Because I think a lot of people sometimes get confused with the distinctions of those, but I loved your explanation, because that puts a very clear boundary between, again, the conscious and the subconscious, both being part of the overall whole, but having unique functions that kind of help us live our experience. And then connecting that to the different layers of the energy body. First of all, what is the energy body, and what is that different? What are those different layers? Because I know in pranic healing we study that very closely and very in depthly, but we're taking it to a deeper level, of course, in this conversation. So if you can please explain that to our audience.
Yes. So let's go all the way back to understanding that everything is energy. So that's a law of the physical realm, our 3D realm, and it's also a quantum law. So, and definitely a spiritual law. So if we go with the premise that everything is energy, if you remember, Dr. Jason, in the 5th grade, we were taught that the molecules of a table are just concentrated, and then the molecules in the air are more separated. So we think of this table as solid, but it's really concentrated energy molecules. So if I became pure energy, I could just put my hand right through that because I would just be able to separate the molecules. We don't have that understanding quite yet. So if everything is energy, then if you can imagine our physical body, how flexible and pliable and, it's just malleable, right? We can get injured and then our body will heal itself. So it's not a fixed situation. All the cells in our body replace themselves every 7 years, in different schedules. 80% of our body is water. So you can see this is a very fluid thing. Our bones actually are pliable. So the bone marrow inside, right? It's like if you could see energetically how much movement there is in our physical body, you would see like, wow, this is really like an energy factory. All the blood circulating, all the air and the oxygen molecules turning the blood different color. It's just so much going on. So then now we can comprehend like, oh yeah, our body is energy. There's a lot of things going on there. And then if you look at a cell, most of the cell is made up of space, right? If you look in the universe, all the stars are there, but there's a lot of space. So everything is more space than it is form. If you look at the cell, the membrane is the brain of the organism because it allows what's coming in and what's coming out. So the membrane has an intelligence in it. And then inside the cell is a lot of moving parts. But again, if it's all the skin, right? It's all the edges. And then they function and interchange. So that's a chemical, energetic component, if you want to look at that, right? So that's the grounding of it. Then let's put in the layers that we're aware of, our chakra system, our meridian system. And then we have an etheric body, which I relate to the inner aura in the pranic healing teaching. And then we have an emotional body kind of layered on top of that as if it was an onion, and each layer is a layer of the onion, a skin layer. So we have the energy body, the inner aura, the etheric body, the emotional body, the mental body, and then our outer aura, which they're going to call spiritual body. Right? So there's different, maybe densities or qualities of each one, right? Because now we're talking about things that we can't see, feel, or touch, and we're trying to use a language that's based on our 5 senses.
5 senses to kind of describe.
Right? Yeah. So if you have a different, say they're colors or vibrations or frequencies or qualities, you could almost do like that. It's not that clean, like a rainbow, this one's blue, this one's yellow. But if you want to just think, because when we're talking about new things, if we can relate it to other things, then it makes more sense, like the hard drive software. So then in the subconscious, this is where I wanted to talk about these things, because I work in the subconscious. I do subconscious healing called internal family systems. But there's a cross between pranic healing, the etheric body, the energy body, and the subconscious. So say something happens, say, 5-year-old is in a car accident and dad was drinking and it was raining and it was nighttime and there was an argument. I'm going to drive, I can drive. And then there was a bad accident and mom ended up in the hospital and, they didn't know if she was going to make it or not. So now that experience on that child has been splashed on that blank slate, right? The canvas, the white canvas. Now that's an impact to the child. Very scary because it disrupted the world as a safe place. Because as a child, in our animal nature, we're always looking for safety. And you're a kid, so everybody's protecting you. And then all of a sudden, the world is not safe. So it kind of cracks our field, our sense of safety. And then an impact comes in and it like splashes this coloration on the white canvas and gets programmed into the hard drive. So now that kid, every time it rains at night and he's getting into a car, his physical body is going to be like, uh-oh, something bad happened here. So, and then if he smells alcohol, this is a dangerous situation, right? Or if he falls in love with somebody later in life, but he feels like my mom could have died, so I don't want to love too deep because people can disappear, maybe not. So then he'll have some kind of conflict. So all of these things related to that example of an accident are embedded in the emotional body, the energetic body, the mental body, and, our spiritual aura. I have a picture here. So I know podcast is visual, is auditory, but this is also visual. This is from Master Choa's Practical Psychic Self-Defense for Home and Office. And it's a picture of a gentleman and his aura. And there's all these little forms and spots and squigglies and all of that stuff floating around in his aura. And then he has the spiritual cord, a thin line of energy coming down from the crown chakra, from above him, and it goes into the body. So if you keep this one in mind, these are different events that have happened that are now embedded in the subconscious, and they're floating around in our aura, our etheric bodies. So when we do pranic healing, and we're doing general sweeping, we can come through and there's a little bump. If you're very sensitive, there's a little bump, there's a little something here. We're bumping into the smell of rain and the smell of alcohol mixed together, and then like, so then everything that happens that's not okay, not safe, is stuck in our aura, and then that's what we're feeling.
Interesting. Thank you for that wonderful explanation, Dr. Ursula. Just because, I think what I've learned from your explanation is, you mentioned the conscious and the subconscious, mind, and the subconscious being more of the canvas. And I just connected that now to the canvas that is our energy body, right? And in the subconscious part. So, and, as you mentioned with Master Choa's book, we can kind of detect these things on the energetic level, especially when we're doing, like you said, general sweeping, and this is a little bump, which just, is on the scale of sensitivity, it might be a very basic fundamental difference, right? Normally there shouldn't be a bump there, or shouldn't be any heaviness. But as you said, as you dive a little bit deeper, we can trace that back to that maybe traumatic event that happened when they were younger, and, with the smell of alcohol and rain and darkness that are triggering, certain symptoms and emotions and thoughts, and even down to the physical body, the physical reactions that is happening. So I think that's such a beautiful and eloquent way to connect it. Because now moving forward, I'll see everybody like, this is their canvas. This is their, conscious and subconscious mind that is presenting itself on an energetic layer. So that's amazing. And as a pranic healer, and I know you mentioned your the specialty in internal family system subconsciousness. How do we go about correcting this? So I know you mentioned pranic healing with general sweeping, but how do we, now that we know the root cause of it, how do we go about addressing it and fixing it and solving it for good? Or is that even possible?
Yes, it is. And there's so many layers, right? So say we just had this energetic version. So think of that going horizontally, right? It's going outward, outward, outward. Just pretend it's not true. It's all mixed together like a soup, but just say. But the inner aura is obviously, there's a line there. but I don't know if we could sensitive enough to say, show me the mental body. I guess why not? Show me the mental body, show me the emotional body. So when we're babies, our brain is not developed for languaging. So we're in a sensory situation. So we get born, we're in the womb, and talk about the evolutionary process, right? It took I don't know how many hundreds of thousands of years to come from the sea to the land, to be what land dwellers.
Exactly.
And now we're doing it in one day, right? We were a water being, and now we're a land being, breathing air. So we go through this evolutionary process in one day. I can't even imagine how shocking that is, going through the column, the birth canal, and out into the world, right? And then we're also coming from heaven, in my mind, right? I think all babies come from heaven. So it's coming from a state of consciousness, of heavenly state, I would imagine, and then coming into an incarnation and then out into a very physical experience. But because we're more heaven than body, we're seeing things from an etheric kind of point of view, right? So everything's very floaty. The eyes are not developed, the brain's not developed. So I would imagine that a baby is experiencing the world in a very dream state. But they're studying everything, like, oh, that voice sounds familiar. Okay, that person's safe. Okay, now my skin is going like this. It must be cold. And okay, oh, now it's dark. Now it's light. Like, we're figuring things out, right? Because we have past lives, it kind of goes, yeah, you know how to do this. You know how to do this, right? The body knows how to walk. Like, all these things kind of come online. So when that baby is developing, it first has a sense like, oh, it's safe here. Going back to ego, safe. It's safe here. Oh, now we're moving. Oh, this, oh, that. So then it'll also, after that sensory, that fine sensory, like what's going on, then it starts understanding things emotionally. Like, oh, mommy's upset. Something's not working. And then, oh, look, when I smile, they smile back. That means happy. So then we develop emotionally, and then the mind starts kicking in because the brain starts developing. And we're looking at cause and effect, cause and effect. So here we are, etheric, emotional, physical, and then energetic.
Yeah. So I think that's very interesting, because now you brought it up in the beginning, but I'm sort of kind of reviewing it for the audience, especially when we talk about, past lives and, coming into birth, like you said, from water, like a fetus into the womb, birthing out of that canal and into this life. It's a very important process, but there's so much going on in the beginning, because from a fundamental level, like you said, we operate on a sensory basis at that level of age, right? Being an infant. But as you grow and you learn and you develop, the emotional, the mental parts of the body start coming online as well. And I think that, especially around that stage, it's a very, like you said, sensitive time, because things are still being, programmed. You're learning, you're taking things in, you're taking it into your body. Like, okay, this is how I need to function throughout life to survive. And that's where we connect back to the, things like childhood trauma that are such a lot of people have these symptoms nowadays, but they can't seem to pinpoint or connect where it comes from. And for a lot of people, a lot of answers or clues might come from that stage in your life, because it's that imprinting subconsciously that we're not always aware of.
Exactly.
So thank you for that explanation.
You're welcome. So, but I wanted to say that before I answered your question, because you're like, well, what can we do about it?
Exactly. Yeah.
Right. So the twin hearts, God bless Master Choa Koksui. I mean, this man is so brilliant. The twin hearts is a cleansing meditation. So we're blessing, right? Darkness. We're blessing all the bad things, doubt, fear, all anxiety, depression, like all of the things we're blessing out. And out of our compassion, because in our animal nature, we still have compassion, because we wouldn't we give, if we're a monkey and we give birth, we don't leave the little baby monkey there. We take good care of it. It's programmed in our system. So even the ego, the little pathetic ego, has compassion built into it. So Master Cho was like, okay, I know how to get these people to do the meditation. We're going to ask them to be compassionate about all the suffering going on in the planet, which is our animal nature to be compassionate, and come on, do this because we need help, which we totally do. But in his brilliance, he has us doing the meditation, and these healing properties are coming in through our energetic body, through the middle, right? Not from the outside in. They're coming down through the chakra, down through the spiritual column, and they're flushing out our mental body, our emotional body, all it's just flushing out, flushing out, flushing out. So even if you see a picture or something, we look like a radiant being. So it's not, like that. We're getting washed from the inside out, and Master Choa's Twin Hearts meditation is clearing out all of our bodies and putting in a force of compassion, the driving force. So it's like a blast, right? So he turns the dial up, and he's like, come on, wherever there's darkness, let us go light. We're like, yeah, we want more light in the world. So our emotional body gets triggered. Yeah, I do. And he says, feel the love, feel the sweetness. He's asking our emotions to kick in. And we're like, oh yeah, this feels so beautiful. This feels so great. And he's like, he prompts us to be thinking, like we're imagining this and we're thinking that. So now our energetic body, our, etheric, emotional, physical bodies, they're all getting online, and we're just blasting out for based on compassion, but yet all of us is doing that. So that's one of the ways to do that.
One of the tools.
Yeah, acts of service. Because when we serve, and this is not talked about, but I've served since I was a teenager myself, because my father used to volunteer, and it's in our household, it's in our culture, and it's in my heart, right? Because I live a life of service. You do too, Dr. Jason. You're trained to provide a specific service, but your life is you are living a life of service. So when we're living a life of service, there's a something inside of us that's driving us forward, and we're not thinking about ourselves at that time. When I'm in my ego and in my wound, right? We also have heard about pain body from another teaching, right? There's a pain body. I don't know if the emotion body took over the pain body, but whatever. So there's a pain body. If I'm in my loop very often, if you go to a scene of a crime or something, and they're like, and he ran over there. He was in the house, and then he ran over there. And then he was in the house, and then he ran over there. They're like on a repeat, right? Because their brain is stuck on this loop, like this doesn't make sense. This isn't supposed to happen. Like, what's going on? What's going on? So the brain kicks in and gets on a loop. So if I'm doing acts of service, my brain can't go on the loop. It's like there's two different areas of the brain that gets triggered. So if I'm licking my wound and remembering how I've been done wrong, I'm not going to be able to go out and do service. But if someone's like, no, come on, we need your help. Come do the service. We're doing a food drive over here. I'm going to go there. My brain's not going to be able to do that and service at the time. So service is a way to override our loops of pain and trauma and discomfort and stuff like that. Look how brilliant Master Choa is, Dr. Jason.
Yes, it sort of service allows you, it gives you that space that allows you that opportunity to kind of take a break from those, subconscious loops and habits and thought forms and patterns that you're so used to, right? And it again allows you to, when you do service, and this kind of connects back to the point when you mentioned with Twin Hearts meditation, which is the golden rule. Whatever you give, you get back, right? What you want to do for others, you want others to do for yourself. So that's why you do for others, and you receive that back. So I think that really connects again deeply, because when you look at yourself, again, like you mentioned, outside of just your own head space, your own thoughts, your own emotions, and you serve, you really heal the most, how I say, efficient and most effectively, because not only are you sowing the seeds for it to come back your way, right? But you're sowing the seeds for others, which even comes back to you multiplied. So I think that's like you mentioned, Master Choa's teachings are so brilliant, but so simple, and it comes back to you, in however way that you want, either simply, or it can go really deep and complex, as we're today with our conversation about the subconscious mind, into different layers of our energy body. So I know, Dr. Ursula, you mentioned Twin Hearts meditation, you mentioned service. There's another branch of pranic healing called pranic psychotherapy, and I think you mentioned a little bit about it with the book on psychic self-defense. So can you just talk about pranic psychotherapy and how you personally use that in your practice with patients or clients with these childhood traumas or any sort of mental, emotional issues that they may have had for a long period of time?
Yeah, so Master Cho, of course, understands that. So he said, okay, let me do, a body of work specifically for these traumas to do. So he uses the highest vibration color, and then, here we are talking about layers, right? All the layers going outward, and then the childhood development layers, and now he uses colors in their qualities, different qualities of the color. So he knows that highest vibration color is going to go the deepest into those little blocks and bumps and scars and wounds. And he has us laser focus and move the energy slowly to burn out, almost in a way, energetic scar tissue. Right. So if that kid in the car accident and this and that, and he does enough Twin Hearts and he comes and he does pranic psychotherapy on himself, or he goes regularly to do it, his physical body won't be so agitated when he gets into a car and it's rainy and it's nighttime, right? Because the body will remember. But if we're smoothing away layer by layer the recording of that event, and putting on
Absolutely.
It's safe, it's loving, you're a good person, all of that stuff. Because then we'll associate, when there's trauma, we make a mental conclusion. I must be a bad person. I'm not good enough. Otherwise, why would these bad things happen? So that's just like a coding to keep it there, right? A belief system, like I'm a bad person, I'm not worthy, I'm not good enough. So when we do all this loving stuff and all of this meditation and service, that brain part of it, that coding, can get softer, and then we can go in and get the trauma. That's why we do affirmations, I love myself and all of that stuff, whatever it is, to help with that belief system that gets locked into place and puts a coding on that event.
Absolutely. And I think that what you mentioned is, and how I see it too, is almost like the higher layers of the energy body, like you mentioned, lowest being the physical, but as you move from the physical to the emotional to the mental, and then the higher energy bodies, they serve as almost the blueprint for each other.
Yes.
From a top-down effect. So the energetic and the mental give the blueprint for the emotional, and the emotional or astral give the blueprint for the physical body. Hence why, as you mentioned, certain people may have certain symptoms when they have post-traumatic stress disorders, getting into a car, they might start shaking or shivering or anxiety and heart palpitations and things like that. That's a very physical response coming from that blueprint, from that emotional and mental and higher energy body, layers. And I think that, what you mentioned with Master Choa's techniques in pranic psychotherapy, it's so ingenious because it, again, works on those layers from a very objective point. Master Choa being a scientist, it's very objective, evidence-based, and reproducible, which in science, as you know, is sort of the gold standard when we're trying to test any theories and things like that.
Exactly.
So, and then kind of moving on, Dr. Ursula, I think now more than ever, there's such a big emphasis and focus on mental health, right, around the world, and trying to explore and find ways that really give people solid solutions, moving forward, right? I think, especially nowadays, medications and drugs, they do serve a purpose, they do serve a point, but I think, as with anything, in terms of moderation, sometimes if you do it too much for too long, it really changes the biology of your body, and it changes how we act and behave in different environments and things like that. So where do you see this type of work, and your work more specifically, in the future, and how can we kind of spread this message to everyone in terms of having accessibility, but also, kind of education, empowerment for the patients and the clients themselves?
Mm-hmm.
Where do you see that in the future?
Yeah. Well, the internal family systems that I do with the client is we will go back. So we'll go in, it's quantum, which we're not even talking about yet today, but right. in the subconscious work that I do, I move into the quantum realm, and then we go back into time and space, visit those events, many of them forgotten, right? Especially when it comes to sexual inappropriate behavior, which most women have had but don't even realize it. And that's like this whole carried forward thing. It's terrible. But if we can go in and pull out these events and heal them, not reframe them, because there's other things that reframe them and do whatever. I'm doing healing. So where we heal them so they karmically do not repeat, because the karmic thing is tit for tat. This happened to me this lifetime, I'm going to get you back that lifetime. That's in the Old Testament, an eye for an eye. And in the New Testament, Jesus is like, just give them the other cheek and get it over with. Like, don't you want to call it quits? So again, service is paying off that karma as well. So that's something to do. You're like, what are we going to do? More service. Our human nature is compassion. So if we are more compassionate with one another, this pandemic and the isolation has done a really not okay job on the mental wellness of the people. But to me, when you go on a higher level and look down and say, okay, what is going on here? Because this is nonsense. This is crazy. It is to take the power that governing systems, right? Our school system, our money system, our food and drug system, the governmental system of suppression of the American spirit or the human creative elements, because we've gotten lazy, we've gotten programmed, we've become enslaved. So this has given us a break to say, you know what? I want to spend time with my pet. You know what? I like being in the garden. You know what? I want to take walks more often. And the corporations are like, okay, everybody, come on back. And it was like, no, I don't think so. So this has given us an awakening to be quiet, right? To go on the meditation mat in a comparison way, and to be very quiet in our homes, locked down, right? In our cell, but in our homes, on our meditation mat, and to reevaluate our lives. A lot of people are getting divorced. A lot of people are moving. A lot of people have gone back to their family. So this is a reevaluation, and it's a course correction of things that have not been right. So the pandemic energetically is like a course correction, because there was too much greed, too much me, too much whatever. And now we're coming back to center, back to family, which has been our focus for thousands and thousands of years. We used to know our story. We used to know, like, oh, my family comes from the thus and the that and the that, and they're the who and the that. We had like an ownership of the pride of our family. And now we barely know our own grandparents, because of the inventions of TV and all this media stuff. So we're really coming back to our own, our truest self. So what is the mental health? Is to get real with ourselves, to be centered with ourselves, to be able to become quiet and say, what's really, really important to me? Is it money because I've been told it's money? Or is it my calmness? Or is it my connection? Or is it my ability to do something that's creative inside, to paint or to draw or to, make funny jokes? You know what I mean? We've lost our foundation. So I think that's what we can do for our mental body, is to get down to the basics, eating healthy food, sleeping enough, keeping our life simple, know, these normal things that for
Simple
thousands of years
approaches.
we've done. And I think that will help our mental and emotional systems when we course correct and do what's really valuable and really important.
Yeah, and that's again a great explanation of it, because I can see that almost as, as the soul, which, we subscribe that we're basically spiritual beings living in this physical life. It's always a constant process of life and death, but coming into carnation, learning the lessons, and then leaving this incarnation with something like you mentioned, service behind to help the next generation, right, to move on. And I think that when you mention, especially when we come into this incarnation, we have a lot of our past traumas and past lifetimes. And what does it really mean to be healthy, right? The mental, the emotional, physical is when you can be your full, authentic, soul-filled self, right? As simply as that. And that could be in your lifestyle, in your activities, in your hobbies, and especially in the things that we're talking about right now, because that's our interest, and that's something that we see as value and importance in sharing this message with everyone else. And I think that that's when it comes down to, when we talk about simplicity, that's at the end of the day, in terms of addressing the whole mental health crisis around the world, it is partly based on the environment, right? Partly based on, our experiences coming from that, but also, as, Master Choa has mentioned, to remember that we are the soul, right? That we're not the body, not the emotions, we're not the thoughts, we're again, a spiritual being in this almost school of life, school of earth, and trying to learn these lessons and resolving our karma. But as you mentioned, the heart of the soul, at the core of the soul, is service. And what better service to do than compassion, right? Compassion and projects and everything else that we're talking about today. So thank you for that, Dr. Ursula.
You're welcome. This has been a fantastic conversation. I really appreciate, the details that we can go in. This isn't a normal conversation, and not everybody would be interested in it, but this is something that I, you know what I mean? I enjoy talking about this.
Exactly.
And it's nice to talk with you because you get it, and I appreciate, that we can talk about this stuff.
Absolutely. And as a closing message to our audience, Dr. Ursula, because we have pranic healers listening and non-pranic healers and people just interested about energy work and spirituality out there, what's some word of wisdom or advice would you have for people, just average people moving on in their daily lives to kind of use these tools and tips and, things that we spoke about to help improve their lives? What's some suggestions would you have?
I have to say the Twin Hearts meditation is the easiest tool possible. I've been doing this for community since 2008, and we are now 2023. So I've been giving that weekly, and there's not one, I do it on Tuesdays. There's not one Tuesday where I'm like, oh, I have to do Twin Heart. No, I'm like, okay, Tuesday, Twin Hearts Day. Okay.
Yeah.
That's how I feel every time. So you would think, it would get old or something, but this does not get old because I know the benefits, not only for myself, but for others. So I would say if you want one thing, do the Twin Hearts.
Twin Hearts. Wow. Such a simple yet powerful answer. And as pranic healers, we know the beauty and the power of Twin Hearts. And like you mentioned, with anything else, there's always so many layers to it, right? And Twin Hearts being so simple on the superficial level, as we know, it has so many deeper and much more complex meanings and intuitions and other things that are happening that we're not aware of. But it's we're still receiving those benefits. So I'm so happy and grateful to hear that you've been doing this for 15 years. That's amazing. And like you said, I feel like it's interesting. I feel like most of our Twin Hearts are on Tuesdays. It kind of works out that way because the meditation that we do is also on Tuesdays. But yeah, that's such a great and simple, effective tool. And you can find Twin Hearts meditation online as well. We recommend you getting the full version, right? And there's also the subspecialty ones where there's one for physical healing, and then there's one with psychological healing, which is the more of the one that goes through the different energy centers in the body that relates to the different things that we spoke about today. All right. Well, thank you again, Dr. Ursula. It's been such a wonderful conversation we had with each other, talking about the subconscious mind, and especially for you talking about your specialty and working with not only children, but also, different people of all different ages through their traumas, and giving us a really clear explanation of, what it is and how we can do different approaches to kind of work and heal it. Because like you said, at the end of the day, what we're trying to do is become our true authentic self, right? To live a soul-filled life. And I think that the things and topics and conversations that we had today really helped our audience. So thank you for that.
My pleasure. Thank you. Thank you for putting the show on and together and putting it out into the world out of service.
Thank you. Yes, out of service. That's what we're trying to do here, out of service. So thank you, everyone. Atma Namaste, and looking forward to seeing everyone on the next episode.